Sources have told the BBC that the government will ditch the eastern leg of HS2 between Birmingham and Leeds. The Department for Transport will announce an update on the rail plan on Thursday. We can talk now to Gareth Dennis, rail engineer and writer. Thank you for joining us. What do you think about that decision?
Yeah, it's pretty catastrophic, given that we've just had COP26 reaching a close. With mixed success, admittedly. We realise, transport is the UK's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. Britain's railways need to double their capacity by 2050, and the only way we're going to achieve that is by building HS2 and by building Northern Powerhouse Rail. Those are the two absolutely critical elements in expanding Britain's rail capacity. This is part of the problem with people thinking that HS2 is all about speed, it's all about journey times, because it allows government to go, well, it's only, you're only losing 15, 20 minutes if you don't build the section between, the East Midlands and Leeds. When in actual fact, that's a trivial import. That's the least important, arguably, part of HS2. The most important thing is that you get those fast trains off the existing network onto these new lines, freeing up capacity for more regional services, more local services and more freight. So big hit.
So what about what the government says it will do instead, which is upgrading existing lines and also looking potentially at a tram system for Leeds? Do they mitigate the points that you're making?
No, not at all. So firstly, Leeds has been needing a mass transit system for decades. It was promised one, that was cancelled. It was promised another one, that was cancelled. Suggesting that this is somehow a replacement for massive improvement to regional services is just false. The other issue is that, talk about upgrading existing railway lines. That's fundamentally the discussion, the problem that we've been having. All these discussions about HS2 come back to, but why don't we upgrade the existing railway network? Well, HS2 is, or should be, an upgrade to the existing railway network. If you look at what incremental upgrades provide you, you look to the West Coast Main Line. In the 2000s, the West Coast Main Line was upgraded. In today's money, between 15 and 20 billion pounds were spent on the West Coast Main Line, and those benefits were absorbed within about 3 years. So the idea that upgrading the existing network, the whole problem we have in Britain's railway is that it's a jack of all trades and a master of none. We've got these mixtures of fast and slow trains, stopping services, non-stop services. They all jumble together and you just don't get the best of capacity. The best railway is one where you have it dedicated to doing the same thing. So the existing network, get rid of those fast trains that force everything to get out of the way, put them on the high-speed lines. You let the existing network, many more trains fit on there, so you get more of these local services, regional services. So you may get similar levels of journey times, but actually what's going to happen as the current proposals is that the rail capacity in the East Midlands and the North will actually be worse when this line opens than it is now.
So I just want to read you a bit from the comments that came through from our political correspondent Nick Eardley earlier when he broke the news for us, saying what the government source is saying about the new plans. He says the government will argue the new plans will give better access to high-speed network to people outside major cities. The source said the package later this week would deliver a quicker and cheaper programme, including, which we've already talked about, the upgrades to existing lines. The source said the plans would show an enormous amount of common sense, and also mentioning that tram service for Leeds that I mentioned. You're shaking your head when I was reading that out.
Common sense isn't a replacement for steel rails on a piece of infrastructure dedicated to improving capacity across the whole country. I'm afraid that the line being fed by government just doesn't match the engineering and the planning reality. The idea that that this is anything other than a cancellation, a massive reduction in rail capacity in the proposed projects. The government's banding around this £100 billion figure. That's all projects that have been previously announced. I look forward to seeing anything new in the government's announcements, but all of it is stuff that has been previously announced that the government appears to be reneging on. It's incredibly disappointing, very, very damaging. The levelling up agenda that the government, they're constantly talking about improving access, this levelling up. The point of HS2 is that those services, those new services that it would enable, is not the HS2 services, it's the chance for those regional connections into cities like Nottingham, into Derby, into Leicester, into Mansfield, into and across the places like Newark, Grantham, Peterborough. These are the places that would be benefiting, not to mention Doncaster, Sheffield, Leeds. Regional and urban services, suburban services running into these cities. HS2 enables many more of those. If you don't build the new high-speed segregated, critically that's the word, segregated infrastructure, if you don't build the segregated infrastructure, you just don't get those benefits in those cities.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.